Hello and welcome to Out of Spec Motoring. Today we are doing a full review of the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid that can charge from the sun. Before we start anything, let's talk about the design of the Sonata. Well, this is all new. This is the new design for the Sonata, and it has these running lights that come up the hood and fade away. Personally, it doesn't do it for me. What do you guys think? I think this grille makes it look like a puffer fish, just not loving it. I will say though, this Portofino gray paint is absolutely beautiful. You can see the unbelievable flake in the sunlight. They did a really good job. Coming around the back of the car, the whole roof, as mentioned, is a giant solar panel that charges from the sun. It's 205 watt peak. It essentially will keep the 12 volt battery topped up. When that's topped up, it'll divert its energy to the high voltage traction battery. During my week with it, it only gained about 3 kilowatt hours, so not much, but at least the car's not losing anything. But it looks beautiful. It's a really cool roof. Coming around the back of the car, you know, I've asked a lot of people what they think about the styling. Half the people absolutely love it, half the people hate it. I'm in the camp that doesn't like it. It just doesn't work for me. I'm not a fan of these taillights that swoop around and back. Not into it, but some people do really love it. I will say the touches, the lighting elements, everything looks very high quality. It looks way more expensive than it is. The shape just isn't appealing to my eye. But you can't fault the level of quality of the paintwork, the fit and finish, the panel gaps. Everything is absolutely spot on. Let's go take this for a drive now. Let's talk drivetrain. We have a 4-cylinder, non-turbocharged, obviously internal combustion engine on the front, and then we have an electric motor on the front side of the transmission, so it shifts gears and the electric motor shifts as well. And then you have a battery pack that is charged partially by the sun but mostly by the engine. Again, 205 watts for the panel. That's not really providing all that much energy, but spread out through the time the vehicle's parked out in the sun, that's a really good idea. Nothing against the solar roof. I think it's awesome. It just doesn't provide a lot of power, but photovoltaic cells are not that efficient yet. So drivetrain wise, when you floor it, everything works together to provide all of the power. So let's floor it in sport mode, and I'm going to show you one of my concerns with the drivetrain. Off the line, plenty of torque. The electric motor goes, it revs up. It's honestly not, the power isn't the problem, it's those gear shifts. See how long they take? Listen. It just is a really slow gear change, and there's quite a big power loss. The other problem is when you select manual shifting, especially going from third to second, see that no rev matching, it just rips the motor back up with the kinetic energy of the car, and that is an unpleasant feeling, especially into first gear too. Feel it drag up. So that bugs me. I actually reached out to Hyundai about this. I said, you know, why didn't you guys put the 8-speed in there with the better logic and everything? And they said, well, the length of the drivetrain tunnel at that point, it wouldn't have accommodated the space. There was a packaging reason that they went with the 6-speed transmission. They claim that there's very similar performance, and they were able to space the ratios the same. I bet that's true, but I think an 8-speed would have allowed this thing to stay up in that high rev band a little bit longer. It also doesn't rev out in first or second gear all the way. It upshifts early, even when you select manual shifting, which whenever you're doing manual shifting, it diverts back to drive. So that's the bad on the drivetrain. Let's talk about the good. I'm going to put the car into its custom setting, which I have asked for everything to be sporty, but with nice and gentle comfort steering. And this is a really good drivetrain. Now we're on our research facility now. We're not tracking the car. We're just driving around the facility. And you can see it drives comfortably, it's quiet, the drivetrain is smooth, it doesn't really get in anyone's way. It sort of just happens behind you. You don't feel anything negative. The gear shifts at partial throttle are no problem, and this is how most people will drive their Sonatas, cruising around. You can actually get quite a bit of electric driving. So on the highway, everything charges up the battery, so when you pull off, you can do like low-speed driving in full electric mode all the time. Now there's a little indication which is on the screen right now that says EV, and that's essentially when the internal combustion engine isn't on. You would think that's not the case. This was another question I had to reach out to Hyundai about. What it means when the EV indicator is lit up is essentially the electric motor is powering the wheels, but the internal combustion engine can still be on for either engine braking or HVAC needs. So if you're blasting the AC, it may kick on the internal combustion engine to supply some extra power, and the EV indication will still be on. That seems a little disingenuous to me. I would have really preferred for the EV light to be on only when the internal combustion engine is off. Other than that, driving on the Hyundai Sonata is great. It is such a refined driving experience. The suspension is extremely compliant on roads. Big bumps translate into your seat, but it's not a big problem at all. The road noise being so quiet is the largest takeaway here. This is a really refined experience driving. Steering's nicely weighted, not much feel, but you can't ask for anything in a car like this. This is a car that you can get in and clock miles. And the fact that this particular version is $36,000 and drives almost as good, especially on the highway, which we're about to jump on, almost as good as some of its very expensive counterparts, that is saying something. And there was a lot of engineering work that went into making this thing this refined. So nice work to Hyundai for all of the smoothness, refinedness. It just doesn't love the performance driving, which I'm okay with because this isn't a performance-oriented car. So all I have to do is select cruise control, set the speed I want it to go. It remembers that I had it on the closest distance, so I don't need to, close the gap every time. And then I can select the steering wheel, which was already selected. I push this button separately, and that takes over lane centering, active lane tracing. So the car is doing adaptive cruise control, staying in its lane, and it's really good. The car will ask you to put your hands on the wheel occasionally, and it's just a torque sensor. You just touch it a little bit and that will wake it up and say, hey, it's okay. But if you ignore that sensor, it will just go forever as well. It doesn't shut off. It just dings at you, says, hey, please put your hands on the wheel. But it'll just keep going. It basically hits the line. It shuts off the auto steering but keeps on the active lane keeping. I'm not really sure what it's called, the lane departure assistance, I guess. And when it hits the line, it pushes you back in. So you have two systems working to keep you in the lane, which is really interesting. Another thing to note is just how quiet it is on the highway. This is such a serene and quiet driving experience. The air-conditioned seats are incredible. It's been really hot out. It's 90 degrees right now. It was even warmer earlier this week. And honestly, I couldn't even keep the seats on full cold. They worked that well. Some other cool driver assistance tech is when the car utilizes its cameras around it. So it has a 360-degree view camera system. A lot of cars do. This is really high definition, but when you put your turn signal on, it shows up in the display a video image of what's next to you. When I turn left, it puts on the speedometer in the top of that screen. And then when I put the right turn signal on, it turns on the tachometer on the right side. That's the blind spot warning saying that there's a car next to me. Don't move over. Understood. Now it's safe to. But it shows the tachometer on the right side, which is interesting because it doesn't show that normally. There's no way to just have a tach on the gauge cluster. You have to go through the menus here, which there are plenty to show the tach. Plus, it doesn't really matter in a car like this, cruising up and down the highway. So I thought that was a weird choice to have a big digital 2.4K to show that you're doing 2,400 RPM cruising down the highway. That's pretty odd. It monitors your attention span. It is just a very smart system. There's another cool system that works off of this driver assistance stuff, but I should say when it's off, and it's when you put the car in smart drive mode. And what this does is it monitors your driving habits. We're going to get off here and I'll just showcase it. It monitors your driving habits and selects the best drive mode to put the car in automatically. Again, a lot of cars have this. Land Rovers, for example, have automatic terrain response system. BMWs have an automatic thing, but they don't give you a visual representation of how you're doing. So here, for example, we're in eco mode because I was decelerating and charging the battery off throttle. But as I merge to get on the highway and put my foot down a little bit, that little bar moves. We're in comfort now, and then it'll go into sport when I floor it. And now we're in sport mode, and it intelligently chooses the drive mode that we should be in. Interestingly to note as well is there's no way to select comfort mode from the system here. The only way to have comfort is through this smart system when the car throws it in. Now there's not a huge difference between the modes, so it's not that big of a deal, but you do feel the steering weight change when it goes into sport, and the gear shifts are a little bit crisper, still not great. But that's a cool thing to watch this gauge go. I've had a lot of fun playing with that up and down the highways. The Sonata has some nifty tech as well. Just like a Tesla, you can summon this car. Well, not this particular one. It doesn't have the option, but Hyundai offers it in other models, where you, including Sonatas, where you can push a button on the key and move the car forward and back in and out of its parking space, just like a Tesla does. Now, it doesn't go around a parking lot. It's not smart. It's just in and out. But that's pretty cool that they're doing things like that. There's also other hints to Tesla in this car, way more than any other automaker. You'll notice here in the center display are these autopilot looking lines. It has the car in front of us, shows the line, and it's always in the center, just like a Model S or X. I thought that was interesting. You can also get a key card that looks just like a Model 3 key card, and that's what can unlock and start this car. And if you don't want to use the physical key or key card, you can hook it up to your phone, and your phone becomes the key. That's really cool. It has some other cool tech too. Check this out. If I have the key in my pocket and walk up to the trunk and stand there for a second, the trunk will automatically open. That is pretty cool. And then look at this feature. If you're behind that annoying guy in a smart car in the Starbucks drive-thru that just has a really long order, well, if you're on your phone texting and he pulls away, the car will say, "Hey, leading vehicle is pulling away," with a little chime. And there you have it. The Hyundai Sonata is just filled with technology. It feels way more expensive than it is. And let's talk about the numbers. A base Sonata hybrid is $28,000 and some change. This one, being the limited, has every available option pretty much. It's 36 grand. This thing is just packed full of technology. It cruises down the highway so comfortably. And honestly, although the styling doesn't do it for me, it does appear to be a lot more expensive than that $36,000 number. So Hyundai, you've done a great job, especially when you compare it to the Toyota Camry hybrid and the Honda Accord hybrid. I think this is the offering to go for after sampling those cars. So we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for watching another out of spec car review.